Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Turning Everything to Gold podcast with Zenzi and Luna. This podcast, we are going to talk about some experiences that happened maybe a couple weeks ago and that have been interesting, impactful. Um, and I want to say we've already tried to record this once before, like maybe a week ago, and everything was fine. And there was interference where everything was fine. You could see us, but there was no sound. So definitely we wanted to come back on and record this again so everybody has some information and just some knowledge. We're gonna connect to this on how to come together and clear in prayer and lifting each other. But let's start with that. And Luna, I'll turn it over to you to share some things that you've gone through over the last couple weeks.
So I work for a corporation in Central Florida. It's a very large entertainment corporation. I've worked there for 26 years. I've worked in the same restaurant. I'm a server for 20 years, and I have been accused of workplace violence now. I believe this is the third time. Most of it has come in the last 6 years, almost 7 years now. And the last time was about 2 weeks ago. What happened actually happened 3 weeks ago, and it was just like it was a normal day. When the it's our shifts are split up into two, AM and PM, and in that changeover, there's about 18 to 20 people in a 12 by 12 area for about an hour. It's very tight, a lot of bumping into each other, a lot of like, just you're not trying to like get in someone's way, but just everyone's in everyone's way. That's just kind of how it is. And anyone that's listening that works in the service industry knows this. They know exactly what I'm talking about. So, anyways, there was just an exchange. Now, I will say this woman, um, she has been there probably about 8 years. I've worked with her for about 8 years, and she is not nice. Her energy is very dark. She is, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to say she's just a very nasty person. I try to avoid her at all costs, but lately it seems that I see her all the time, and she's always upset with me about something. I'm not cleaning her table fast enough. I'm just not doing something the way she wants me to do it. I try to avoid her. I usually just ignore her. We had an interaction a couple weeks before this last interaction where I saw her coming towards me, and the person I was talking to, I said, "Oh, here she comes," to say something to me, and immediately that's what happened. And I was like, "Told ya." We just walked by each other and we just like hit elbows, like not hard, didn't hurt. Like it was just, when you're walking by someone, even like in life, and you just like swipe up against them. That's all that happened. But I immediately knew when when the incident happened, I immediately knew it was going to be a problem. And I kind of put it out of my head. There was someone there that saw what happened because she like turned around, and I was like, "What? Like, what just happened there?" And she was like, "I don't know." And I said, "Why is she so nasty?" And they're like, it was just this whole like conversation. So, anyways, didn't really think much about it. Worked another day, a couple days later, and then came back a week later after the incident happened. And I'm 6:45 in the morning and getting ready to start the day. And a manager comes up to me and says, "We have to go. You have an interview." And I said, "An interview?" And I'm like, "With who?" And they're like, the name of the office is called MO5. It's the security office. And I was like, "Me? What is it about?" And she was like, "I don't know. I really don't know." And I believe her. So we go and we sit down, and these two lovely gentlemen, I have to say, they were just like the loveliest people. And they're like, "Do you know why you're here?" And when you have an interview like this with this corporation, they don't tell you what you've done wrong or what you've been accused of. They just start asking you to almost tell on yourself. And I thought it was a conversation that we had same day. it was because they said on Wednesday, the 10th, do you remember something happening at work? And I thought it was a conversation that we were having. There was a bunch of ladies and I in the back doing our money at the end of the day, and we were talking about bras. And I thought if somebody overheard that, they could have thought it was inappropriate. So I wasn't participating in the conversation, but I was standing there. So I thought that's what they wanted to talk to me about. I didn't know. And I was like, oh yeah. And they're like, no, 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 stop, please, please stop. They're like, that's not what we're here for. That's something else. And I was like, oh gosh. I said, well, then I'm not really sure. And they said, violence in the workplace against another person. And I was like, yes, I know what we're talking about because I immediately remembered.
Mhm.
And I said, yes, I know what we're talking about. And they're like, what are we talking about? And I told them what happened. I was like, there was 20 of us where I'm trying to go in. She was trying to wander out. Like we just brushed. They go, you didn't push her. And I said, no, I didn't push her. And meanwhile, there's 18 other people around. I said, no, I didn't push her. They said, did you lower your shoulder and like charge her? And I was like, no. I said, if I had done that, she would have been on the ground because I'm like 180 pounds. I'm not a tiny petite person. Um, and they were like, well, why do you think? I was like, this is not the first, because this is not the first time that she's had a problem with me. I have no problems with this person. I just don't like to be around her. That's my only problem. I don't like to be in her energy field. So I try to avoid it. So they said, why do you think this person, why do you think this, I'm sorry. I did say, this isn't the first time she's had an issue with me. And they said, well, why do you think that is? And I said, well, because I walk. I
I
laugh when
guess this
saying
is the
this
best
because
part. This is the best
people
part.
that's why I laugh is because it is the best part, but people are going to be like, and when we get to this part, people, the general public are going to be like, what the heck did she say? I said, because I walk in God's white light and my light irritates other people's darkness. And she is very irritated by me. I said, I've never done anything to her. I've never said anything to her. I certainly didn't push her. If I had pushed her, there was plenty of people around in a small area. There would be other statements. That never happened. So when I said that, the interview was over. When I said that, they were like, okay, like, we're just going to need you because then you have to write a statement. That's how the company does it. You have to then write your response to what you've been accused of. And they're like, we want you to put all of this in. And in fact, we're going to read this statement to make sure that you have all of the information in there that we need. And I said, okay. And I said, but why is this person allowed to manipulate the system and is allowed to be able to do these things? And they're like, you have to talk to your management about that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, because they're just there really for the process, to see if something happened. Because typically when you have these meetings, you're asked to give your ID and you're walked out. That's usually what happens.
Mhm.
Um, but the last two that I've had, now I've had three. The first one didn't go so well, but I will say that was 6 years ago, and the outcome of that was amazing because the first time I did get my ID taken, I was separated from the company. Like a lot of bad things happened. That was in 2019, but a lot of amazing things came out of that. The last time it happened was in 2023, and I had started in 2022. I had just started getting into like spirituality and chakra alignment and Reiki and like all of these things. So in 2023, when I had that same meeting, I kind of had the same energy that I gave them this time, but this time it was more like, no, like I am a light, she is darkness. It wasn't like that last time. Last time it was more of I'm really trying to change the perception of myself and how I used to be because I used to be very, and I will say I was described as aggressive. I was not aggressive, I was assertive. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between that. Aggressive is in my view of things is physical. You're physically trying to domineer and overpower people. Assertive is having boundaries and being like, no, no, not with me. Nope, you're not doing that. And telling people when they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing or something that you don't like. And I was always like that. My delivery wasn't always great, and that's what used to get me in trouble. But I was never physically violent with anybody. I don't put my hands on people. And I did even, in fact, say that this time. I said, I don't, I never hit my children. I don't I use my physical touch for good, not
Hmm.
for evil. So the second time it was kind of similar to what I said, but this time it was like, no, this is the problem. She is the problem. Da, da, da. And they came back in and they read my statement and they were like, okay, all of this looks good. And they suggested that I apologize to this person, and I was like, I didn't do anything. I'm not the type of person anymore that will apologize if I did something wrong. If I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, you know, if I do something, I will apologize 100%. I went back to the location. I worked the rest of the day. And then when I was going home, I had a friend come up to me and he said, did you get my message? And I said, no. They also told me at the end of this meeting, we can't be having conversations about this at work. And I said, no, of course not. But can I tell there we have a union and we have people that represent us in the union. I said, and they work with us. And I said, can I tell my union representative? And they said, yes, you can have a conversation with her, but not with the cast. And I said, okay. So I go to work. The day was great. Everything was fine. I'm leaving. And my friend comes up to me and he says, did you see the message I sent you last week? And I said, no. I go and I look at my messages and there was a message from him and he was like, she is telling people that you assaulted her, you pushed her, and she is going to employee relations and she's going to write a statement against you and all of these things. So he gave me the heads up. I had the heads up 6 days before. I just didn't see it. So it was in that moment that I decided I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to start saying what's actually going on around here because for a very long time I've been silent. I don't say, I won't talk about things. It's not gossip. But when somebody is going after people in a way that's like detrimental to their livelihood, that could be detrimental to their life, that's a little bit too far. And when it's being allowed in a corporate environment, it was just too much for me. So now I'm just telling everyone. And you know what is really funny is, and I didn't know this when we tried to tape this last week, but everybody knew. Everybody in the, because she went and told everybody
Oh,
that
wow.
I physically assaulted her. Like, and there are people that I'm close with that didn't give me the heads up, that didn't say anything to me, that just were like, no, we're just gonna stay out of it, knowing the potential ramifications of it. So I'm kind of a little bit disappointed about that, but grateful for the one person that did speak up and say something. Um, there was something else I wanted to say. I have seen her numerous times since then. I'm have not changed who I am. I will not shrink to be more palatable for her. And if she doesn't like it, she can leave. I'm actually actively trying to leave now. There's something called a forced transfer where the company can move you to another location. That would be my ultimate goal because I'm just tired of every time someone feels um, upset about whatever's going on in their life,
Mhm.
they look at me or somebody else. This happens to a lot of people where I work. But I'm tired of it being me, and I'm tired of me always being. Eventually, it's going to be, well, if you've been here 3, 4, 5, 6, how many times am I going to have to go before I'm not believed anymore? And I haven't done anything.
Well, what happened? I'd like to ask, you said there was other
It
things
was
that
just
happened with this
I
particular.
was walking in, she was walking out. We just brushed elbows, and that was it. That was what
There
happened.
been other times that there have been an issue with the same person with you, though?
Not with me. Well, not physically. She doesn't like She doesn't like when I open my mouth to say anything ever. So she doesn't like me to talk. So she constantly finds issues with things that I'm saying, which is really weird because everything that comes out of my mouth, and when I say everything, I mean like 90%, is like positive or meant to be uplifting. And that's what bothers her.
Right.
So she has a real issue with herself. There's just it's a lot of darkness, a lot of darkness. I work with a lot of people that have that, and I do understand that it's from ancestral trauma, it's from trauma in this life, it's from they're carrying things that aren't there. Like I do understand all of that. And that's why I typically try to stay away. But it's come to a point where with some people you just can't stay away. She's accused numerous other people at the location of physically harming her. So I just feel like, why are you still here? I don't understand why it's allowed. So, anyways, I came home, and on the way home, I was trying to message you, be like, you're not going to believe what happened today. And it wouldn't go through. I tried like 3 times, it would not go through. And then I went outside, and it was, I'll never forget, it was 4:44 because when I see that, I think of my grandmother. That's guardian angel. That's the number when I think of my grandma. And all of a sudden, I felt like super nauseous, dizzy, um, like headache, pounding, piercing, not pounding, piercing in my left eye, same side that we connected. Um, I went in my room and I kind of like sat up in my bed just to kind of like let myself rest. And then it was 6 hours of hell. It was so scary. And I knew when it was about 2 or 3 hours in, I knew it was a spiritual attack and I was being attacked. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, this is like witchcraft. This is, um, I initially thought voodoo, Santeria, something like very, very dark. And I was like, okay. And I'm just trying to like, my rosary is super close to where I was sitting. I couldn't get to it. I bought the rosary in Ireland at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and my grandmother was very Catholic. So it's also it's made of hematite, which is very protecting. It's a stone of protection. And I could not get to it. And I'm just like praying. And my husband came in. I needed a blanket. I couldn't even like get the energy up to ask my husband for a blanket who was like in the next room. I needed some water. I couldn't lift my body. My heart rate I could feel had slowed. My blood pressure felt super low. I just felt like something was trying to drag me down and also kill me at the same time. And my husband came in and he's like, "Do you need to go to the hospital?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't even know how I would have gotten there because he couldn't have carried me and I couldn't have walked." So that was like 6 hours, and finally I like pulled myself together, had some water, and I messaged you, and like immediately you responded with, "I'm seeing um dark energy, evil, black magic, voodoo. It's really bad. It's really dark. It's a spiritual attack." And I was like, "Yes, yes." Like I didn't even tell you all of that stuff. And then the response from you was, "This is happening." And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's what just happened to me." And it was the scariest thing I've ever been through in my life, ever. And I never want to experience it again. And yeah, it was
So
wild. So
what
that was the whole day.
when that happened, and I want to go to the spiritual attack side of it, after that happened, and I was shown that. I was shown hitting on the elbow. And that was there's also something where you can tap and people to switch with their life journey, their life path. Anyways, they're with intention and darkness that you can switch and transition things like this. And so I was shown that tapping of the elbow, but immediately went into prayer and sent you the prayer.
Mhm.
Um, and during that, I was shown a vision of myself and you and one other that were coming together um, to really do battling the darkness and some of the work that we do. And when we went through the training for the rich training, I want to share this because it was our for the days that we were there. In class, we had demonic energy manifest in
Yeah.
one of the students. And I was like, this is awesome because that you get to really physically see how we're not just working with energy here when we do our sessions. We're also sometimes working with the spiritual, always working with the spiritual side, but sometimes it's heavy, darker energy. And that was such a powerful lesson to learn. But until, that was an attack, that was just a manifesting of that darkness that we were, able to clear. But
Yeah.
there's a difference when you are getting spiritually attacked and you really don't know until you understand and go through it. But that's why we have to come together in prayer. When I said that prayer and I sent it over, and I don't even think we talked, you may have done a recording and sent it back, but I think it helped with the with that blanket of protection, just kind of starting to separate that a little bit. But that's still, you had several more days of maybe not that intense, but
I would still say I'm still feeling the effects of it. And it's interesting that you just said you can transition with other people's lives in that situation, because I will say I found myself feeling a little bit more not negative, but like kind of like, what's all this for anyways? Like, what does it matter in the last few weeks? And I know it's important, so I continue to go with it. And then like my mind is blown away by everything that the universe shows me as to why like you're supposed to be doing this work. But then it just keeps creeping back in. Like
Mhm.
it's a very negative, very not spiritual at all. I don't even know how to describe it, but it creeps in, and it's exhausting to me because it's like now it's like I'm battling like in within myself, and I'm just like I'm exhausted. And I thought it was the holidays, but now I'm thinking maybe there's something else going on. But like I just told you before we started, 24 hours in nature, man, what a change. I feel like a different person, totally motivated to do everything. And yeah.
I think it's you get into that prayer mode and then the battle starts to happen in the spiritual and then it can shift and you feel better, but there's still that remnants of
Yeah.
that. And that's why the prayer and coming together is so important to be able to assist each other going through different things like this. Because when you said I'm walking in God's white light, that was the problem with what was going on, that you were doing that. But when you're doing that and you get attacked, you're going the right direction, you're doing the right thing because you're definitely making a difference. But I feel like at least for the past couple weeks, and I know there's been a lot happening, but I could feel that shift
Yeah.
energetically, which is why I was like, I think we need to maybe do a session or just get in because you need extra support during that time. Um, yes, but anyways, this is why coming together and prayer and really connecting, when you do this type of work, when I've studied many different forms of energy, hands-on healing, energy medicine, different things like this. But when I started teaching people how to do the rich training, it is so important that you have to understand that what you are working with people, because if you don't, we're developing intuition, yes, but also when you're in an energy session with somebody and something potentially manifests, that can
Mhm.
affect the practitioner. I know a
Mhm.
lot of practitioners that get sick because they don't protect themselves properly. And I know they're coming from a light place, but it can create a lot of issues, not only for you, but for the client, and then as well for your home, depending, your home, everything can be attacked. And I did see your husband a little bit, but not like, not in the same way. He was just in your energy, so he was experiencing that. That attack was physically, for on you
Mhm.
directly, but I did feel an effect on him as well.
Well, it's funny that you say that because this happened on Wednesday. He came home on Friday. Now, I didn't know anything was going on at this time, but he came home on Friday the 12th. This happened Wednesday the 10th. He came home Friday the 12th. He was so sick that whole weekend and even that whole week. And that night on the 17th, when I started feeling a little bit better, you had sent the prayer. And I finally had put two and two together and I said, "You're being attacked too. Like, that's what's happening to you." Like, because it was physically like taking him out.
Mhm.
And I was like, and then I even took it one step further and was like, because he is someone that protects me. Um, I always joke that if the company thinks like the worst of me, when they look at him, like that's a redeeming quality for me is that I'm married to him because the company loves him.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure how they feel about me, but they love him. So it's like, because I have him, I do feel like that's sort of protection. Um, and he was definitely like going through it, and he started feeling better the next day, and then better the next day. But yeah, he was really, really ill, and which was weird because I didn't get the physical sickness that he had.
Mhm.
Um, which being so close and living together, I usually, if one of us gets sick, the other one gets it. And that didn't happen this time. But, you know, I got I got something totally different. I would have preferred that cold, to be honest.
Yeah. I love how you said you just got back from some time out in the land and camping a little bit and really allowing yourself to be present in the moment with nature makes an immense difference. It's a really big reset.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what time we are on this because I didn't record when we started.
Well,
Just to finish this up, we really wanted to share this, number one, because part of the work that we do is also deep spiritual work as well. And sometimes that's warfare. And yes, entities, demonic energy can manifest. And so often more times in a session rather than just at work, but you
yeah.
are also bringing the light to your work.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was really a dark, multiple ancient, heavy energies. But um, anyway, I think we'll go into another podcast talking a little bit deeper about some spiritual clearings and healing like this, and some different stories that explain a little bit about it. I was going to tell, I don't know what time we're on, but I was going to tell a little bit about Matt coming in because we're going to bring him on the podcast and have him share a little bit. He's an amazing friend and prayer warrior who came in. I want to say maybe in 2017, we had our first, I did a session with him, and we worked on clearing some really heavy witchcraft over him, a very specific witch energy. And once we got through that, which I would like him to share his story from his perspective, but all of his spiritual gifts, because we all have them, really started to develop. And now he sees in the spirit. He calls people and connects and tries to help and uplift and prayers to everyone. And it's just a really unique energy, but brings in a lot of prayer and protection for the work that I do. We've had a unique experience, and has always been there to have my back. But this interesting when it came to this particular experience with Luna when she was at work. Um, about a week later, I would say, maybe 5, 6 days later, he called me and said, "Did you get attacked?" And I was like, and I started looking back on my phone because these are normal conversations that we have because this has
Yeah.
happened a lot. He's a truck driver, which is also amazing because he'll say, "I'm driving a truck. I had to pull over because I needed to pray." So he pulls over and he prays and does the work he needs to do, and then he gets back on the road. But anyway, he said, no, last week, like, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometime did you get attacked? And I looked back on my phone and I'm thinking, I don't think I got attacked. And I'm thinking, I go, oh, I said, well, actually, it wasn't me. Now, I felt exhausted the next day. Typically, but I was like exhausted the next day. I remember that, but I'm like, no, I didn't get attacked. But then I told him your story that happened. And then he started telling the same thing that I said to you. And he's like, oh, it's this and this. And I'm like, I said, yeah, that's where we kind of got that. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you. And then he told me the vision of you were lying down, but you were kind of covered, almost like with a like in the shadow a little bit, but you were laying down and you had a male energy with you that was over you, but was protecting and managing for you. And he said, I was standing in front of you in between myself and this dark entity. And he went in to describe the dark entity and what it looked like. And he said his role, and when with the work that we do, his role is the protector role. And he said whoever the female was on the floor, she was being cared for. You were stepping in front of them for protection, but then it was facing you. He said, so then I stepped in front of you, and when I did that, he said this entity had what looked like a weapon in its hand, and he shared the what the weapon was, and he said it felt like I had something in my hand, but I didn't have anything in my hand, but it felt like I did. And he said I started praying in the spirit. He said I reached my hand up and put my hand, and when I did, the shot of like he called it like electricity or lightning went right in between the darkness and just dropped like that. And he said it felt like a bolt of lightning. And I said, I'm pretty sure it was the Holy Spirit coming out with fire and intensity through prayer, because he is a prayer warrior. And there's been so many times that we've done sessions that I would really like him to explain that he has come
Yeah.
in this protector space. So he described everything that happened, almost a week prior,
That's
and
so
then went
cool.
into other visions that we were doing. So, I think God really had.
But we also have to preface this by saying that your friend Matt also worked for the same company that my husband and I work for.
Yes.
So I feel like he understands. I honestly, this dark energy comes from being in this space. I know that it does. And I know that it's ancient and I know that it goes like way back, but at the crux of how it's getting in is through this. I will say it. I stand by it. Don't care what the repercussions are of that. I'm sure people will be able to figure out where we work. Totally fine, but it's coming in through there. And I think a lot of people are exposed to it. So, and more protection is definitely needed, you
Mhm.
know.
And I didn't even know that. I didn't put two and two together when I told you. And then I was like, oh, because I've had him come in and for some of the retreats,
Mhm.
he was a chef. So I was like, would you mind cooking at the end of the retreat for everybody? Because he's an amazing chef. And then I was like, oh yes, you work for the company. That never even came into my mind until you said that. And I'm thinking, oh wow. I don't know how long ago, but yeah, he
It
worked.
doesn't matter.
He knew what it was though, which
I
was.
mean, the layers that need to be cleared from this organization and the people, and I mean, a person could make billions of dollars. An energy healer could make millions of like just going in there and trying to do the right thing and make sure that everyone's taken care of spiritually, energetically, you
Mentally,
know.
mentally, a lot of things need help mentally, is what it feels like as well,
Yeah.
like mental wellness.
Hmm.
Anyway, I definitely think that this was a blessing to have people that you've never even met that knew that they were there, prayer and
Yeah.
protection. So that's really, we wanted to share this, but we also want to say the importance of coming together spiritually through prayer, because it makes an immense difference when at any time. It doesn't even have to be a spiritual attack. It's just in our work, it sometimes happens
And
regularly.
protecting yourself. It happens more times than not, but that was what in the rich training, that was one of the things that you stated, I'll never forget. It was one of the first things that you taught us was you have to protect yourself. And in fact, and I remember thinking at the time, like kind of looking around the room, like, oh, are you guys like, is it just me? When you said you have to cover yourself in the blood of Jesus Christ, you have to. And I'm just like, any anybody else like know what she's talking about here? And everyone's like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay, mm-hmm,
I don't know if
yep.
everybody felt that way, but if I'm going to teach and I'm going to teach 100%, you want to learn what I'm doing, you've got to learn the
Yeah.
way that I'm doing it. And it is
And
the most important thing.
And then you taught us the little protection prayer, and I learned it, and I would say it all the time, all the time. And now I definitely do it every morning before I go to work. I sit in silence. I have a prayer for protection. I say this protection prayer, and I feel like most of the time that is enough, but it wasn't enough that day. It just wasn't. And I was unprepared for what came my way.
Well, I think there was a plot. Now, I'm saying the darkness that is when you're talking about this, and we've said how she was, it's within her. It's not her, it's the darkness within her. It's how she's being manipulated
Mhm.
from that dark place. And I think sometimes that's why we have to come together, not sometimes when we get attacked like that, because attacks do come in. So, yeah, this was such and finally we're doing it again and we're going to test it out. I'm sure the sound is coming through this time. We did it a little bit different. And we have some more podcasts coming out very shortly following this one that we're going to talk a little bit about some spiritual, um, just some experiences that have happened and maybe even some tools to assist in supporting yourself, protecting yourself, and sending your angels out to clear your path for your day because that's super important as well.
Mhm. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
Hi, welcome everybody to Turning Everything to Gold. This is Zenzi and Luna. We decided that this is going to be part two of what happened last week, right around the holidays that we just discussed some things that happened with Luna at work and some spiritual attacks and the importance of prayer. And we just wanted to go into expounding a little bit on what could maybe help in places like that. We were talking about like what would help in companies and what you're trying to do, what I feel you're trying to do because you've started doing your own work, your own healing work. You said you went from a place of maybe being what considered to be maybe aggressive in the words, but was more assertive and is changing to lighthearted and love and bringing light in and teaching people to like you just said, share what you do want and not what you don't want, because that's what you're going to attract by the universe. So you're really trying to bring a light of awareness in and help people, align with happiness and joy. So I just want to say, share some of the things we were talking about to help really build any corporation and lift their clients, which will really only help the company in general.
I will start by saying that in my whole life, my parents were in the restaurant industry, so in the service industry. My father owned and managed restaurants. My mother worked in them. My brothers and sisters, my brother and sister, we all have worked 333. Okay.
Your alarm's going off. I'm
Yeah.
glad. 23.
333. So I will say that I have always noticed and just really became more aware that there seems to be a lot of people hurting and emotionally, spiritually, physically in this industry that I work in. And I work for a very large corporation, and they have hundreds of restaurants in just a small area. And there's a lot of like people hurting, and it manifests itself physically. They have issues with anxiety, depression, and I've noticed in my 30 years in the restaurant industry that this is prevalent amongst I mean, because I'm around it, I know that it exists in every area of life, but there seems to be a higher concentration of people that are attracted to the type of work that I do. I always felt this is going on a totally different, we're going down a totally
I
different
know.
slide road here. I'm gonna loop back. I'm gonna get back on the main road. But I'm going to say for probably about 10 years now, I've prayed, I've asked the universe, I've said, what is my purpose? I just want to know what my purpose is because I saw this interview that Tony Robbins did with Oprah. And he said, and it stuck with me, and I could cry just thinking about it, success without fulfillment makes people miserable. If you don't have a purpose in life, you just are miserable. even if you're successful. So I got to this level within this organization where you could work a part-time job, you could make six figures a year, you could be home on the holidays, you could be at all your kids' soccer games, you never had to miss a Christmas recital, all of these things. So on the outside, nice house, nice cars, children look good, everyone has what they need, success. On the inside, misery. I feel like I see this a lot in this industry in general, or specifically, but I know that it's everywhere. So I'll just say that really quickly. When I was called to start doing energy work and get more into spirituality, I noticed that I could have a positive effect on the people around me in my work location, which is a restaurant. And that was very, like, it made my ego feel very good. Like, and then when I started, really getting into it, and like, my third eye started opening, and there would be times when someone would come in the left side of their shoulder hurt, and I'd say, "What's going on with your mom? There's something financial happening. And they had given me no information whatsoever. Um, and they were like, "How do you know this?" There was another time where this woman came in and she's like, "Oh, my back hurts." I'm like, "Right around the heart?" "Yeah." "Right side?" "Yeah." Um, "Are you having an issue with your husband right now? What's going on with your husband?" And she just looked at me because they had had a huge fight the night before, and she was saying, "Oh, I feel like this marriage isn't going in the direction that I want it to go in." Sorry. So I have all these like crazy interactions at work where people were started, and this has been within the last year, where people kind of started to look at me and they were like, "How do you know this stuff?" And I say, "Well, usually I'm just standing next to you and I can feel it." And I say, "I'm clairaudient." And they're like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "I can hear things. I'm also clairsentient, so I can feel what you're feeling. Um, and I'm also an empath." And so I have all these senses that pick up on the things that are happening in and around me with the people around me. So that's number one, what we talked about in the last thing. That's why you need to protect yourself, because you need to have that barrier where it doesn't get in. You can feel it, but it's not, getting inside. It's not attacking you. So there's this one specific person at work. Lovely person, lovely, lovely person. And he kept saying, "I'll never be able to retire." He's a little bit older than me. And to be honest, I didn't even realize he was close to the retirement age. When he told me his age, I was like, "No way." And he was like, "Yeah, I think I want to say he's 63. I want to say he might be 65, but we'll just say 63." And he was like, "I'm never going to be able to retire. I have all this debt and yada, yada, yada." I said, "The universe wants to give you what you want. The universe wants to give you what you ask for. That is how the universe works. It is self-actualizing and self-correcting. So stop talking about what you don't want." And I tell this to everyone at work every single day when they come in and they're like, "I'm going to get a bad tip." I'm like, "Yes, you are. Please don't come back and tell me how bad the tip is. I don't want to know." But I'm like, "Yes, you are, because you've just called that in." So I'm explaining to him, you need to talk about, "I want to retire soon, and I hope that I need the money, and whatever the number is that you think you need to retire." So he comes up to me a couple of days ago, Christmas. No, was it? Oh no, it was the day after Christmas. I hadn't seen him in months. And he says, "Has anyone said anything to you about me?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have." I'm thinking he was sick, right? And I just didn't know, or something happened and I just didn't know. And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to tell you something." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Please don't tell anybody at work." So I'm just going to go on a podcast that's, worldwide and tell people, but no one from work is listening to this. So, and the people that do probably already know. So, I said, "Okay." And he said, "I won $1.9 million." And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like now excited. I'm like, you can retire, like, and he was like, well, I don't want to retire yet. I want to, stay active for a couple more years and then retire, 65. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, oh my gosh, this, and he goes, well, remember I always used to say I couldn't retire and you always used to tell me to actually say what I want. And he was like, and this is what I want. Now, the flip side of this is he's gotten what he wants and miserable. He's like, I'm fighting with my partner. I went and he won 1.9 million and it was on online casino, I think, or gambling. I'm not really sure, but it was a company in London. That's all I really know. And he won 1.9 million and he then went and tried to win more and he lost about 300,000. So still has 1.6 million dollars. Still a millionaire. But now he's focused on the $300,000 that he lost, that he didn't tell his partner the truth about how he was gambling online. And like, there's all this other stuff that comes with getting what you want from the universe. So you have to be very careful when putting energy out there that you're very specific in what you ask for and how it comes to you because sometimes it comes with more problems. And I guess I have to say this, I wasn't, I mean, I know this, but I wasn't specific enough in when I was talking about it um, to share that with him because, he was like, oh, I've paid off all my debt. Great. Because he used to stress about his debt. And he was like, and I can work or not work. And I'm like, amazing. Because, oh, that's how the conversation started. He has 2 or 3 jobs. And he said, I called in, he works for a theme park as a server at another theme park. And he said, I called into that job and for Christmas, he said, I'm not working Christmas. I said, oh, I don't blame you. Like, yeah, no. And he called in and I said, I'm surprised you still have that job. Like, you don't need it. Because he got that job during the pandemic when we lost our jobs at the corporation we work for. Um, so he's like, well, I'm going to quit it soon after the new year. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when he told me. I was like, oh, you really don't need that job anymore. But yeah, he said, you know how you always tell me this. And then he was like, I was able to help this woman that we work with, give her some money so she could buy um, Christmas presents. And I was able to do this for I can't, he was telling me all these things that he could do. And like, it really made him happy to like give the money away. But he was still so fixated on the $300,000 that he lost. And I was just like, dude, let that go. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Let's focus on where we're at now, what we have now, and how we can stay in this space of joy and not focus. I said, I really recommend getting into therapy because he came to me earlier in the day on Friday and he said, um, when you did counseling through the company that we work for, how did that go? And I said, it was amazing. I had the most amazing counselor. She changed my life. She was amazing. She really got me on the path that I'm on now because she was so open to it. She was like, I'll never forget. She said, do one thing that you wouldn't normally do. And the one thing that I did was the chakra alignment. And she was like, because she was part Native American. She was from North Carolina and she was part Native American. And she said, oh, yes, perfect. And she's like, and I was in the middle of a big move. And she's like, go sage the house and do all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I'm just walking around, just like protection and clearing out the, I had no clue what I was doing. But this house that we lived in that I saged before we moved in has been amazing. So, but I was telling him that was a side road. I was telling him she was amazing. And I said, maybe get into some issues for, the issues that you're having with your partner and how you can't have joy in having something that you really, really dreamed about come true.
I mean,
And that was honestly the saddest thing was that to see someone's dream come true and them still be in a place of, you know, negativity, sadness. It was sad. It wasn't he wasn't telling me to brag. He wasn't telling me because he was happy. He was telling me because he was still in pain about something great that had just happened. And I was like,
I really think that being able to continue to lift him up, and that's one of the things that we were going to talk about was what you just said was if more, and it sounds like it was or is offered through your company meditation, breath work, energy
yeah.
healing, um any type. There's so many different types of therapies, and you can get a bunch of different types to see um where you fall in alignment, because not everybody's going to fit in the same category of what is going to resonate with them. But I think if the people heal, the company will make more money anyways. The
Mhm.
energy with the group, the communication, your teamwork will be able to be built. And it can just simply be breath work. It doesn't have to be anything, spiritually aligned. It could be, depending, but if you offer things like that really helped you get on to your road, which has led you to where you are now. And it just feels like, I mean, I've worked, and this is going to be different types of companies, from real estate agents to assist with the support and the conversations, to bankers who come together and have to interact, because if someone's dealing with something and they're in a group, everyone's going to feel it whether they talk about it or not. If they're going through challenges or trauma, or they're feeling different way, or like you just said, more of a negative mindset, or always thinking the worst, and that's where your mind is, that you're a magnet, things will constantly be brought in that way, and it can affect the team. Jewelry stores and all how the interaction is. So they actually came in and did meditation, breath work, energy clearing. She's very open. She's like, yeah, just do whatever. And the company started growing. So there's so many things that you can do, like you just said, therapies that can really help people if they're looking to heal. But it feels like that your friend connection there, when we're in class and I'm talking and I'll say the same thing 50 times, like you come to class and I'm like, you've already heard this.
Mhm.
It might not be until the 51st time that it actually sinks in, where you're like, oh no, this becomes so much repetition that this is my new platform. And I think he just needs more support to be like the counseling, or maybe come have a session with you. That might be a good idea.
Yeah. I was actually going to reach, I was going to give him a couple days. I think I'm going to see him on Monday and just be like, because he's also the type of person that he says something, you've got to follow up with him. Like that's another thing about service industry people is we're huge procrastinators. We will procrastinate our procrastination, to be honest, and we will put it off and put it off and put it off until something really bad happens, or we really feel so bad that we can't continue anymore. And I think you find a lot of addiction problems in the restaurant industry. I think it's alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, overeating, all of these addiction issues, because we don't have the language, we don't understand. We've certainly not been raised in an environment where, if you had told me that meditation and breath work would totally negate the need to be on antidepressants or anti anxiety medicine 5 years ago, I would have told you that's crazy. That's crazy. But I told you the story of the yesterday when I was at another large store, and the anxiety. And I don't ever have anxiety. I never typically had anxiety. Depression was my really issue, but just breathing through it, like, and getting out of there as fast as I could. Removing myself from the situation, and then just the recovery, the breathing through it, the getting out into nature, and the knowing what my body and what my brain and what my heart need in order to be
And
healthy.
what did you do that brought you there, that needed you to go to the woods to rebalance? Just say what, because this is when we do this type of work and you become so sensitive and really fine-tuned, and then you realize, oh wow, I'm feeling everyone else's energy. And then you have to learn how to process all that, especially the work that we do as energy practitioners. When you get into a place where there's hundreds and hundreds of people going in different directions.
I just have to say, okay, I just have to say,
Just
they
say where
were
you went.
in their jammies, Zenzi. They were in their jammies. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm really not, because what I wear, you could be someone's jammies, right? But I'm talking about like jammy top, jammy bottom. And they're just wandering around and
Maybe people will be able to guess where you.
they're just I mean, I wish I could. I'm gonna say it. I
Well,
call them the wall Martians. Okay, I don't know if you know where I was, but I call them the wall Martians, and everyone's just wandering around, and nobody's really aware of what's happening, and or where they're going or what they're doing, and it's just a very weird vibe that I don't particularly like, and I'm not huge into crowds, which when people find out where I work, they're like, that's hilarious. I don't like a lot of people. Like in my space. I like people, but not in my space. And it was great. And my husband is like, you're being ridiculous right now. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That was too much for me. Don't ever take me there again. I will wait in the car. I will wait in the car. Because I can't, yeah. But I will say, when you were talking about corporations, the corporation that we work for, they do meditation in one of the parks at um, at dawn once a year. Once a year they do. It's yoga. It's not even meditation, it's yoga. And then maybe a couple hundred people do that, show up for that. They also offer meditation and breath work on we have a company portal, I guess is what you would call it. And there are these things. It's a wellness program that the company offers. What I'm noticing is that people want to do these things in person. And even when I recommend having a session with you, because I recommend you to everyone I know, and they're like, "Oh, does she do in person?" Because I want to do in person because people want like that face-to-face interaction. So, like doing things over Zoom, I think people are feeling that they need to be connected in order to do things like that. And there's just a huge lack of connection. I think corporations, for me, what I would like to see is them bringing in people like us that, and like teams of them, and like have because the corporation I work for has a medical wellness center. They actually have two where you can go to the doctor, you can go get your blood work done, you can go, and there's a pharmacy, and it's amazing because you get your Tylenol at cost. It doesn't cost $10 like it does at Walgreens. It's $2. It's amazing. Like we have all these benefits medically, but nothing really for mental health other than they do offer counseling through Zoom. I was lucky after the pandemic, I got to do an in person
Mm,
the program that they had just started that they have since stopped, which because they transitioned it all from in person to Zoom.
mm,
And it just wasn't as popular. I think people want to have that interaction, but that also opens people up for all this energy coming in, like an energy salad, which is, if you don't know what you're doing or you're not used to being in that environment, I think I think a lot of us where I work in the service industry are used to just cutting off those feelings or numbing them. We'll deal with them later, and they just never get dealt with. And I think that that's something that I would love to see change. And that's in my small way when I go to work, because you told me a couple weeks ago, you told me, but you've told me this for many, many months now, maybe about a year, that I need to be happy with where I'm at and I need to accept that I'm here and I'm here for a reason. I'm supposed to do this and I'm meant to do this. And when it gets to be too hard, like it's okay to take a break from it, but I have to accept that I have to keep going to this place and be attacked.
And be thankful because you're
And
bringing
be
light.
thankful
You're
that I'm
bringing,
being
you know,
attacked.
this is I know, but you are doing work there and it's serving a purpose, and you are really doing work in the trenches right now because of where, you're processing a lot, and I think you're bringing in a light and you are making a difference. And it's not always going to be like that, but that was too just a little bit of battle that I could feel, within your own self, so you could actually feel grounded and go through your day, everything you need to do, so you didn't feel unhappy too. It was also to help you
Well,
keep.
yeah, and when you're pushing against where I know I'm supposed to be here. I do know that. I know that things are shifting, and I look at my life and I say, oh, everything just takes forever. But I look at my life over the last 3 years and I'm like, and even Nick said to me a couple weeks ago, he said, look where you've come just since last year. Like last year was when he bought me the website for Christmas. You've built your website, you've done a class with Zenzi, you've done a community healing thing, you're doing a podcast, you're doing all this stuff, like you're growing your social media. He's like, look where you are from, and I think, I know that we've talked about this before, if it doesn't happen overnight, if you don't go viral, if you're not a success, if you don't, write your first book and it's not an instant like New York Times bestseller, like you're a failure. And that's just not what it is. I just think it's just hard to sit in it knowing that you're supposed to be somewhere else and you want to be there already. That's what it is for me. I would just want to be there. I want to be
I tell
in
people,
my camper van
uh,
rolling around.
you've gone so fast, in my opinion. I know when you're in it, it's hard, but to me, and I've said that to you so many times, that you've just been, when you made the decision to jump into this, you jumped in head first, and then you kept going and going and showing up for yourself, and then doing the deep work of healing with family and trauma and past, and you've actually gone really fast. You just have new goals and new dreams that you are, moving towards constantly. But I do think during this transition time, you're bringing such a light in. And I do want to say, just to kind of, reaching out when you said it would be nice to do things in person. I do think that it is good to do things in person, but I also think Zoom is actually, I do sessions on the phone sometimes because people don't want to do Zoom.
Mhm.
We can do it that way. But I think at least being able to see, because some people, they literally don't have the time, or they can't go for an extra 30 minutes or an
Yeah.
hour. There is an issue. I mean, I work with a lot of people in other countries, so the connection can't be, and it can be very powerful over Zoom if you really align. That's why I think having a consultation, so you can make sure you resonate with the person you're talking to. And like you said, you worked with that woman. She really made a massive difference and set you on a different course in your life, really. And that, I just want to say that Zoom can be very powerful. And I would invite people, just because it's not readily, maybe if the door opens and you have in person, I think it's fabulous. But if you have the ability to test it out on Zoom, that's at least a step in the right direction, especially if you have that heartfelt connection with somebody, because I think it's important to really match someone's energy. That's why I was thinking the breath work could be for somebody, it may not work with others.
Yeah.
Meditation may be a good direction. Some people, I meet so many people because I teach meditation, I teach breath work, who say, well, no, my mind goes and I just can't shut my mind off. And I said, doesn't really work like that. Let me take you through some practices to get you into that space. And with practice, you will be. I mean, it's not about shutting your mind off. It's not about that at all.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you, because everyone says I can't meditate. I have ADD, I have ADHD, I can't stop the thoughts. I'm like, meditation is not about stopping anything. It's about allowing the things to go through you and not be affected by them. That's what meditation is. It's
And
not
be
shutting
present.
anything off.
Be in the
Yeah.
present. You
Yeah.
teach people really to be invested in the present moment, because most of the time people are going in different directions. So it anchors you into
Mhm.
the now moment, which is really the place where we're manifesting from. So that's why your thoughts are so important in the moment. And so it allows people to get in a place of feeling that calm stillness. And there's many different forms, I want to say, of meditation that we take you through. So not every meditation is for every person. I
Mhm.
say my favorite form of meditation is hiking by myself. That
Yeah.
is my favorite form of meditation. I'm so in the moment, and I have runners who are in that moment. And there's many different types, but a guided meditation allows you to get your mind focused, and it is a practice. It is a practice, just like exercise. You want to build your muscles, it's going to be a regular practice of going to the gym, not, once a month, but something a little more regular. And you will see the benefits of it. You will see it. Mm.
I 100% agree. That's what got me started during the pandemic was the meditation. I was like, I can't be sitting here with these thoughts all day long because that's what I thought it was at first. I'm going to learn how to meditate and then the thoughts will just go away. And yeah, that was the biggest joke ever. That didn't happen. I was like, but I just realized like, and then I started reading books and they were saying, you are the observer of your thoughts. Be the observer of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And I thought, oh, okay. Okay. No, I'm not a loser. No, that's just the thought that I'm having, but that's not me having that thought. That's something else, but I'm not a loser, like, and then it was just, you know, I will say when your meditations, I do your meditations in person when you're in town and we do them on Zoom. And I tell everyone, just to piggyback on what you were saying about doing the sessions on Zoom, I tell everyone who says, no, I like to do them in person. I said, sometimes the Zoom is better than in person. That one that we did last April on Metatron was one of the most powerful meditation sessions I've had with you, and it was Zoom. It wasn't one of our in-person sessions. So I always um, I personally like Zoom. You don't have to travel because it's
Mhm.
like so much wasted time like in the car. You don't have to travel. You're right there. And we've said this before, Wi-Fi. You believe in Wi-Fi, you believe in the energy of all of this happening. Why can't you believe in the energy of healing happening through
Mhm.
that same channel? So I do like Zoom as well. I've just noticed a lot of people are like, I really want to do in person. And for me, I would almost prefer Zoom, to be honest. But
I mean, it's good if you have
at
different.
first I was in person. I was like, in person, I need in
Yeah.
person.
There's a difference, but I think it is also, there's benefit to both, is what I'm saying. And if some people can't make it, then they can still join in. It's like this. And so I think that some people will say, really, really want to be in person. I really want to be in person, but they'll actually not show up. And so
Yeah.
it's just an excuse. So you can join in. So there's different ways to be able to do that, but I would test both and see. But if you only have the option of Zoom, it is good. And the energy healing, I mean, we do energy healing around the world. It happens. It's with intention and connection. Again, I've had people who have said to me, "Hey, I want to have a session at 3 p.m., but I'm going to be on a plane. Can you do the session for me? And then when I'm on the road, you can call me back and go over everything."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, but it would be really better if you could, relax. Let me, take you through a little bit of a meditation and center so you can feel what's going on in your own body as well. But sometimes, no, I just need you to do this, and we can do that too. So it comes in different ways, and we can explain that maybe in another session of how something like that would unfold, like explain a little bit about how it is in person, um, and then in Zoom, just for maybe I don't know if we've said that yet about different things to expect during the session. I have people feel lighter right when we're finished, and then some people who are like, that was exhausting. I need to go rest for the next day. So
Hmm.
it just depends on what they're clearing. But I would say try both, and however you can get there, see,
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah. I
I've had
mean,
people say that to me, like, I really want to show up. I really want to show up, but I don't think they actually want to show up because they never have. I think that
yeah.
it's just like, first you got to get through the door, however that is, if it's on Zoom and setting up the session or, something in person. But sometimes it's just getting past, setting it up and moving in. You want to, but you got to get past that doorway that's kind of blocking you from starting the path.
which is, and we can talk about this in another one, the judgment. Like, people can't get over the fact that some people are going to listen to what you say and just not judge you. They're just there to hold space and to just
Mhm.
listen to what you're saying and help you move that energy and help you clear it so that you can be better and you can have a better life. Like, and that's for me. For a very long time it was afraid of being judged by people until I was just like, I don't care anymore what this person thinks about me. I've got to get this out. And if this is the way it has to happen, oh well, that's how it has to go. And I think that that's why people, I know that that's why people don't show up, because that's why I wouldn't show up. I
There's a
would,
little fear. That's what I mean. It's like
yeah,
getting
the fear of
your
judgment.
own way to be able to, because there's a lot of things that happen when we're in class, which are, I call the magical experiences of synchronicity,
Mhm.
or tears will happen and you don't know why, but it's just the energy trying to clear the body. Because yes, we're doing meditation, but we're working on the body, mind, and spirit level for healing, so you can live at your happiest self, your highest potential. And everybody in these groups, they're like a family, and there's nothing weird. They'll say, well, this is going to be weird if they do speak, which it typically takes a while for people to start to share. But the sharing is part of the clearing process. It allows you to use your voice. But the people in the group have always been unconditionally
Yeah,
loving and supportive. And it's typically a smaller class just for the spacing purposes. And even when I do online group sessions, it's typically smaller, and then you'll see a lot of the same people come, and it's just very supportive and uplifting, and that's what it's meant to be. Yeah.
yeah,
You just got to break down that wall and show up. It's really showing up for yourself.
yeah. And that's, I think that's where people get stuck. They'll show up for somebody else. They'll show up for somebody else. You'll show up on your Zoom call for work all day long, but you won't show up for a Zoom meditation that you paid for. It's wild,
Mhm.
that fear. So yeah,
Thank
gotta
you
live
guys
it.
so much. Release that fear and come try a class.
Yeah.